Good Wednesday afternoon to you. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. A little later in the show, Kevan Arnold will join us. We'll talk little Browns and a little Indians trying to snap that 7-game losing streak out in Tampa Bay. Double header against the Rays. But we begin by talking Browns, and we will do so in just a moment. We will be joined by John Fanta. The golf match yesterday, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, couple of golf pros. Interesting thing for the Browns is Baker Mayfield was interviewed by Charles Barkley just about the whole expectations of the Browns this season.
You know, all the moves that we've made to bring some of these guys in, obviously really talented people, but seems like it's a bunch of locker room guys, good chemistry going on, and you know, I'm excited to hit this thing, hit it running.
You guys talk about and I'm not trying to be a phone or anything. This is going to be like the first time everybody's going to be picking you guys to be great.
Yeah, no, we've definitely had a lot of conversations about, you know, expectations come within our own locker room. You know, you set your own standards. You can't listen to the outside stuff, and that's what matters, because you can feed into the good stuff or the bad, and it's all going to negatively affect you. So we have to do a good job of, you know, keeping our guys focused one day and 1 week at a time.
Let's bring in John Fanta. And John, you hear that, and that is certainly the kind of mindset you want to hear from the Browns.
Well, Dave, thanks for having me. And, you know, interesting to watch Baker Mayfield there. And I think that for Baker Mayfield, you look at what he is thinking about here heading into this season. And the fact is that he knows what's in front of him, and he knows that the level of maturity in the Cleveland Browns organization totally changed last year when Kevin Stefanski takes over. I love Baker's focus. I love the way that he has evolved as a quarterback and as a leader of this Cleveland Browns football team. He clearly has his head on his shoulders now, realizes the task at hand, realizes that he's got money here at stake with a potential contract extension on the horizon. And I think that he really is representing both himself and this franchise in the right way. And look, you couldn't always say that early on in the Baker Mayfield era. But when you compile that with the fact that the Browns were going through a revolving door, a game of musical chairs with their leadership, it was easy to see why it was reflecting off of some of the playmakers on this Cleveland Browns team. So I look at Baker Mayfield and I see a guy who understands what it takes to be an NFL quarterback. And you have to credit the current coaching staff for what they've been able to do to really make that realization come to fruition.
You mentioned that contract extension, and that's a hot topic nationally as well. And it's always in conjunction with Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield from that 2018 class. Here's what Greg Rosenthal had to say about Baker Mayfield and Lamar Jackson's contract extensions on the Rich Eisen show.
We're still waiting to see fifth-year options turn into monster contracts for Lamar and Baker. Why haven't we seen them yet? Do we get them right before the season? What do you think, Greg?
Yeah, this is the time of year. I think it's going to happen with Lamar Jackson just because of the way that he spoke about it. He sounded so confident, and I would anticipate it's probably going to happen with Baker Mayfield. When the players aren't stressing publicly and the agents aren't stressing at all, I don't think the fans should, because I think both players would be agitating if they weren't expecting to sign. Lamar, I think will happen before camp. Whether Baker happens before camp or midway through, it sounds like it's happening. I thought it might be an interesting strategy after watching Jared Goff and Carson Wentz get those two contracts early and then regret it, to just make Baker play another 6-7 games with Kevin Stefanski. But it doesn't sound like the Browns are that interested in doing that.
And John, that doesn't surprise me. That's not the way this front office operates.
No, it's not the way that this front office operates, Dave. And I think that I expect something to get done here at a certain point. Now, look, for Baker Mayfield, the money aspect is an interesting one because his career thus far has been a mixed bag. But when you look at the touchdown numbers and when you look at his efficiency overall in the red zone, when you stack him up against some of the other young quarterbacks, the quarterbacks that were in his draft class, That's where I think that the meeting at the table for the exact dollar amount is going to be interesting. But I really do expect that Andrew Berry and that the Cleveland Browns front office are going to do what it takes to make something happen here, whether it is before, whether it is during training camp. I expect something to get done here. And I think that it'll be interesting, most of all, to see exactly what happens financially with this deal. There's a lot of different things to consider. But the Cleveland Browns should believe that Baker Mayfield is their quarterback going forward. He is their quarterback for the next 10 years. And I do think that he's shown us enough, and he's shown this organization enough to earn that right. And you have to treat it as such. Not every contract extension that gets done means that you have seen the best from your quarterback. You're signing an extension hoping, also knowing that the work ethic is in place, that the intangibles are in place, and that there are pieces that make you believe in the upside. And I still think that Baker Mayfield can get better. And I think he's willing to get better and willing to build on where he's been. And you have to ask yourself, do you believe that Baker Mayfield can be a guy who can lead you to an AFC championship and a Super Bowl? And I do believe that the Cleveland Browns believe in that. To what degree, we'll see what the finances are of the situation. But Baker Mayfield fits right there with a Lamar Jackson. And I fully expect that this front office, the way that they operate, they're going to get something done. They absolutely should, and they have to. The quarterback is the foundation position in this league. Baker Mayfield has earned an extension.
Yeah, and you know what? The price of a franchise quarterback, it's only going up. If a quarterback is a stock, you invest in it, because as the salary cap goes up, so does that number.
It does. I mean, that number is only rising, and people have to understand that it's going to come at a price, but that Baker Mayfield showed us last season his ability to manage the Cleveland Browns to wins. I do not care how you draw it up. Nobody looks at back to week 7 or week 9 at how you won the game. They want to see, did you win or did you lose? In this league, the margin for error is slim. And last season, with a competent head coach, a competent staff, under some very strange circumstances with the COVID-19 season, Baker Mayfield took the next steps. Those next steps now need to get rewarded. And the price of a franchise quarterback, as you said, is rising. And finding that franchise quarterback can be very complicated. It's why we are seeing quarterbacks get taken with those top picks in the draft, and some quarterbacks that maybe 10 years ago, there are certain guys that might have been taken at the end of the first round or earlier in the second round that are now getting taken in the top 5 or top 10. Because if you don't have it right at that position, then you're not going to do a whole lot of anything when the postseason rolls around. You don't have to have the perfect quarterback. You have to have the right quarterback. And it is clear to me that Baker Mayfield and Kevin Stefanski have something that can be sustainable. And the Browns should capitalize on that, and they should make the move for an extension and give that vote of confidence. You don't have to do something crazy. And I know we're going to get into the money here and what exactly that money should be. And I have some thoughts on that. But is it time for the extension? Yes, it is. You should believe in Baker Mayfield. He got you a postseason win. For this franchise, that has been nearly impossible to come by, or nearly impossible to even think about. And this quarterback got you there and had you in a position in Kansas City. He needs to get rewarded with a deal.
All right, we'll come back to Baker Mayfield and the contract extension in just a minute. So NFL.com ranking fan bases who deserve a Super Bowl. Now, there were 4, we'll go into 3. 3 of their analysts picked different fan bases. Joe Thomas, former Brown, he didn't pick the Browns. He picked the Packers. Now, in fairness to Joe, he's from Wisconsin, so we get that. But Scott Pioli worked in the Kansas City Chiefs front office, worked in New England front office, got his start here. He said the Browns and the Lions. Maurice Jones-Drew, running back, said the Browns. So 2 of the 3 that we're going to talk about said Browns fan base, and that's kind of what you would expect.
I knew I always liked Maurice Jones-Drew. He's always been somebody that we enjoyed and liked. No, you know what? It is what you expect. This fan base, the Cleveland Browns fan base, is in a category of their own. I will speak personally in that I grew up on the west side of Cleveland, but I've actually been in the New York, New Jersey area for the last 8 years. And there is a respect from New York sports fans, believe it or not, folks, Giant and Jet fans, for Cleveland Browns fans, because their passion comes through. When I talk to a Giants fan, you know what they bring up? They bring up that 2008 Monday Night Football game when the reigning Super Bowl champion Giants came to Cleveland and the Browns wiped the floor with them. Eric Wright had a pick 6. Giant fans say, my goodness, you could sense how much this fan base is with their football team. It's really a movement. Jet fans were on the receiving end of a collapse that was Baker Mayfield's debut night. That was the unlocking of those Bud Light coolers when the Browns pulled off that win over the Jets, Baker's debut. The point is, Dave, there are Browns fans worldwide. It is truly a global fan base, and you can feel it. This fan base is deserving. This fan base is on fire. I talk to people every week that say, what is week 1 in the Muni Lock going to be like? I cannot wait to see the cleveland.com videos and photos from Hayden Grove and company from the Muni Lot, because I think it's going to be absolutely spectacular. Everywhere you turn right now, there is Browns fever, and rightly so. And that's why Maurice Jones-Drew said it. I actually think it's more revealing that a player that had nothing to do with the Cleveland Browns made that statement, because there is a respect from opposing players for Cleveland, for Browns fans, and it was just a matter of when is this franchise going to win? Because when they do, it becomes an attractive place for people to think about coming. And that's why the Browns are now a really appealing destination to free agents, to other players. They have the fan base, they have the roster, they have the coach. That fan base means so much. And it is more than football. Cleveland Browns fans deserve everything that's about to come to them. And I think it's about to be a whole lot of fun for this fan base. One that I can only imagine. I was at a Cavaliers parade. I can only imagine what a Browns parade would look like.
I'm guessing it would be cold. John Fanta and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, more talk about Baker Mayfield and that contract extension. Do you do it? When do you do it? What does it look like? Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Sports4CLE continues. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue talking Browns football and the Baker Mayfield contract, the new one, contract extension that is likely to be coming. If not this offseason, certainly during the season or next year. So Tiki and Tierney, a show on Fox, has this to say, and there's an existing contract that they think kind of fits Baker's contract.
I can't see how a deal gets worked out without him having an excellent season this coming up season.
Yep.
And by the way, they don't have to pay him right now.
No, I know.
He's got one more year on his deal, fifth-year option, and then they have the franchise tax. There's actually 3 more years left before they have to pay him. So I think, like, cutting it right after this year makes sense as opposed to doing it now before you have to.
If you punt for a year or two, like the Cowboys did, if they would have signed Dak 2 years ago, they would have been saving money.
That's a good point.
So that, to me, if you can perceptively read the room and project accurately, which is not always easy, you're going to save your team some money.
Let's bring John Fanta back in. And John, they made the case about the Dak Prescott and the reason to do it now. Your thoughts of what that contract might look like.
So I actually think that the Browns could save money. I do think that by signing Baker Mayfield to an extension now that they could end up benefiting financially. And I think that what the contract looks like to me is not Dak Prescott's exact deal. I would more look to some of the recent deals that we've seen more towards the Carson Wentz, more towards the Jared Goff type of area code, just based on the sample size we've seen at Baker Mayfield. Now, what we're talking about there is more towards Goff was 134, Wentz was 128. I think more than those two values, but closer to them than a 4-year, $160 million deal. Based on the marketplace, Dave, and based on what I see, I think you're looking at a situation where you could get Baker Mayfield hovering around the 135, $140 million mark. Perhaps the two sides will work towards something more. I don't think, though, that this is a situation where the Browns are signing Baker Mayfield to that Dak Prescott-like deal. I don't think that there's been enough there to say that it's up to that level. And maybe the two sides are going to have a standoff and say we've got to increase the dollar figure. But you still could benefit monetarily if you do have to adjust that number, because like Tiki and Tierney said, and I agree, if you wait and Baker Mayfield's got you in the AFC Championship game, and let's say he's the main reason for it, let's say they win that AFC title game, guess what? Cleveland is now going to be in a position where they really are going to have to fork out the funds to keep their quarterback, and as a result, there's a ripple effect down your roster. You can't possibly keep everybody. This extension, I think, needs to get done. I don't think that they should be camping out and waiting on it, waiting a year. I myself would try to capitalize on the window. I think that there's a friendly opportunity for the Browns financially, and I think that it is the right time to give that vote of confidence in a guy that's got you to the postseason, got you a postseason win. To me, Dave, if you wait on this, that tells me that there's a lack of belief. And my question there would be, where is that coming from? Why is that happening? I think that there's a lot of reasons why this deal should get done, and there are reasons not for it to get done.
Yeah, the other thing that I would say is that it needs to be structured in a way that you can do the other deals that you need to. And we've got a bunch of Ivy League finance guys that can certainly figure out the loopholes of the salary cap. But that's a cautionary tale, is make sure you can keep the pieces you need to around them. As we move on, the Bleacher Report's Gary Davenport has said that the waiting game is the only game for the Mayfield contract, and I think we've made it pretty clear. I think the longer you wait, the more you're likely to pay.
The longer you wait, you're more likely to pay, and the longer you wait, the more drama you could create. Okay? This has been a drama-free, for the most part, a drama-free last 13, 14 months for the Cleveland Browns. Sure, they had things having to do with COVID-19, but a lot of the summer headlines that we sometimes see coming out of Berea, we don't see much anymore. We really do not. The Browns have a foundation laid. The quarterback is an integral part of that foundation. And by playing a waiting game, you could jeopardize where you've gotten thus far. And where you've gotten, there's a lot to like about it. There's a lot to respect. You've earned the rest of the league's respect. You don't just do that without quarterback play. You're going to have franchise quarterback play at the start and at the end of games. And the counter argument from someone might be, well, in that game in Kansas City, Baker Mayfield had an opportunity to win that game, and he didn't take advantage on that drive. Okay. But Baker Mayfield has had situations to lead this team down the field when they needed it, and he has done just that. And oh, by the way, Baker Mayfield was one of just 4 quarterbacks still standing in the AFC last season. And that needs to come at a price. If you play the waiting game, you, one, would jeopardize yourself financially when you have to make the contract extension, and you jeopardize perhaps other pieces on the roster. 2, you would potentially create drama in your organization. Why would you want that when you're on the track that you're on right now? And 3, it becomes a talking point. It becomes something that's hanging things up. I just think that the waiting game says we don't have full faith in Baker Mayfield. You can both say that you want to see more from Baker Mayfield, while also saying that you believe that Baker Mayfield is the franchise quarterback. And I think both statements are true. I don't think we've seen the best from Baker Mayfield yet, but that's okay. We shouldn't have seen the best from him yet. But we've seen enough to say that for the foreseeable future, he is the man that should be taking snaps for the Cleveland Browns.
Fair enough. All right, quickly before we go, Touchdown Wire ranks the top 11 slot receivers in the NFL. Number 1, Tyreek Hill. Number 2, Keenan Allen. Number 3, Tyler Lockett. Juju Smith-Schuster is 4. Cooper Kupp is 5. Nowhere on the top 11 is Jarvis Landry. Nowhere.
That's absolutely
on the top 11.
That's absolutely, it's ridiculous. I mean, my mind is boggled. You think about the 72 receptions. You think about the 840 yards, and you think about the fact that this is someone, Jarvis Landry, who catches the football on a consistent basis, will do whatever it takes to make things happen for his offense. He's a grinder. He has established for the Cleveland Browns a mentality that you show up every day and that you put your hard hat on. That starts with Jarvis Landry. All we have to do is run back Hard Knocks from a couple years ago. In the midst of the Browns coaching drama, Jarvis Landry was a constant who showed up to work every day and made things happen. Tyreek Hill should be at the top of this list. Cooper Kupp has earned a lot of respect. But if you're not going to say that Jarvis Landry is not among the top 11 slot wide receivers, I don't know what you're watching. This guy is a reception machine who can make things happen without just catching the football. On the run, with his arm. Jarvis Landry has proven that he's one of the more versatile weapons in the National Football League. Not just a slot receiver, a weapon. And you're not going to put him amongst 11 guys in a 32-team league? I'm sorry, but I just think that is disrespectful. And Jarvis Landry should be on that list and has earned the right to be on that list. I'm not sure what that list is going off of, because Jarvis Landry is one of the 3 or 4 most important reasons why the Cleveland Browns have come this far and why their offense has taken a climb. He plays unselfish football, but will do what it takes for his team to win.
Yeah, without question. I'm not sure how you do top 11 slot receivers without Jarvis Landry. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. On the other side of the break, best and worst case scenarios for the 2021 Browns, courtesy of Pro Football Focus. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. Sports4CLE continues. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue talking Browns football with John Fanta. Pro Football Focus, best case scenario for the Browns, John, 13-4 record. Baker Mayfield plays like he did to close out the season a year ago. Clowney remains healthy, forms one of the best defensive edge rushing tandems with Myles Garrett. And the Browns secondary, aided by Delpit and Greedy Williams, returned from injury. I think if those things happen, 13-4 might be a little light on the record. They might be even a little bit better if all those criteria hit.
If all those criteria hit, you know what the most important one there is, Dave? The health of Grant Delpit, of Greedy Williams. Because if those two players are healthy and performing to the level that they are capable of, then the Cleveland Browns defense is going to be in a very sharp spot. And Denzel Ward, for that matter, who has dealt with injuries. For me, the best case scenario does not hinge on this offense. The Cleveland Browns have the best offensive line in football. Baker Mayfield looks comfortable under center, looks comfortable in this Kevin Stefanski offense, and I can only wonder what a full offseason, a normal offseason will make him look like. The Browns wide receiver core, stacked. We're going to talk about rookies in a little bit. They've made additions there. They brought in Anthony Schwartz, but they've got Donovan Peoples-Jones entering year 2. I expect a lead from him. You've got Landry and Beckham, one of the best 1-2 punches when they're at their best, and the Browns are set at tight end, and they have the best running back tandem in the league. The defense is what the best case scenario will be impacted on. If the Browns secondary stays healthy, they have enough assets there. They have depth there to be a very good football team. And I also think that for the Browns, their linebacker core is an area that you expect to see improve, but you want to see Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah pan out to the degree in which the Browns believe that he can at that will position. And there's a lot of confidence that he will. So for this Cleveland Browns team, I think there's no question that Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney, along with Andrew Billings, who's back in the fold, that the Browns are going to be in a position on their defensive line to be a very good defensive front four. The question for the Cleveland Browns is, will their secondary stay healthy? If they do, then we could be talking about 14-3. We could be talking about a 15-win football team. 13-4, like you said, might be on the low end.
Yeah, I would agree. And you know, if Clowney and Billings and Malik Jackson are all healthy, you could have a dominant defensive line. All right, Pro Football Focus, worst case scenario now, 8-9 record. Mayfield and Beckham still can't get on the same page. Clowney battles injuries for a third straight season. John Jefferson and Troy Hill aren't as effective in the new defensive scheme. An 8-9 record, they say, worst case scenario.
Well, so for the worst case scenario, I will say as we watched 1-15 followed by 0-16, we've come a long way for the worst case scenario to basically be a 500 team.
Yeah.
But for the worst case scenario where I say, okay, I just think there's so much that's made about the Mayfield-Beckham relationship and everything that has to do with Odell. Odell Beckham Jr. has got to have a fire underneath him to make everything work. When he is at his best, he's one of the best receivers weapons in the game. And Odell Beckham now is in a winning situation. There's a lot of pressure put on him to perform. That pressure's not going to go away. But it is not imperative that Odell Beckham performs for the Cleveland Browns to win football games. It is imperative that Odell Beckham is a team player. And for me, Baker Mayfield and Odell Beckham Jr., I never questioned whether or not they were on the same page. I think the entire Browns offense got better and better as the season went on, not because of Odell Beckham getting sidelined, because you had a first-year coaching staff. And you had to figure out just how much you were going to run the football. And as the season went on, the Browns ran it more and more and more. Austin Hooper got better and better. Donovan Peoples-Jones got better and better. The wide receiver depth could be murky. You didn't strike fear always in an opposing secondary. With Odell back in the fold, with Schwartz drafted, the Browns wide receiver core is going to be A-OK. In terms of the defense, John Johnson, Troy Hill, I don't understand that. I don't understand the idea that those guys, are not going to be able to be a part of the equation. And one other thing that we haven't brought up is Anthony Walker and the type of player that he is, the type of addition that he is. You're talking about somebody who's put up 90-plus tackles in each of the last 3 seasons. You don't just do that in the NFL without being a consistent force in your defense. So for me, I don't understand the defensive additions look better on paper than they actually are. Health is a concern there. But the Browns have filled up their defense with enough options that if they deal with an injury this season, they're better equipped to deal with it than they were last season. For instance, on the defensive line, they were carrying in and around 4 defensive tackles last year. They now have up to 7 or 8 guys that can be part of the equation. And I think that will make a difference in this team's workload in a 17-game season.
John Fanta and I are going to step aside and take another time out. On the other side of the break, the 3 most underrated off-season moves that the Cleveland Browns made. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Sports for CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue talking Browns football with John Fanta. John, dogpounddaily.com. 3 most underrated off-season moves. The third one, drafting Demetric Felton.
Big addition here for the Cleveland Browns, because you would say, well, you know that Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are in the fold, but Demetric Felton is somebody who catches the football at a high rate and did at UCLA. And that's not something in the college game that happens as common as it does in today's modern NFL. Felton's numbers, they popped. He was flying under the radar heading into the draft, and the Browns pounced on him. And I expect that Cleveland gets creative. We know that Kevin Stefanski is willing to get creative, is willing to try some trick plays. He's willing to factor in some different guys to the fold. And everything that's coming out of Berea says, yeah, Demetric Felton will be part of the Browns equation. We know that Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are going to be one of, if not the best, 1-2 tandem running backs in football this upcoming year. But when you have that third option, sometimes those are the guys that end up cashing in when you least expect it. And the way that Felton caught the football, the way that he caught the football at UCLA in that offense, he's somebody who racked up receptions. And I think that's a very, very interesting dynamic. And even Stefanski has said Felton's versatility is what he likes. He is not Nick Chubb. He does not run the football like that. He gets out in space. He makes things happen. He's shifty. And I expect that Demetric Felton is going to be a factor for the Cleveland Browns this upcoming season. There's too many good things coming out of Berea right now to suggest otherwise.
Yeah, and the thing about a guy like Felton, he creates some matchup problems for the defense, and that's always something that Kevin Stefanski kind of likes to do. All right, number 2, replacing B.J. Goodson with Anthony Walker. And I like Anthony Walker a lot. I think that's a hugely underrated signing by the Browns.
Okay, Anthony Walker is a tackling machine. You're talking about someone who has tallied 321 tackles over the last 3 seasons, someone who is a 5-year veteran in the National Football League. And I read a piece a couple of weeks ago about Anthony Walker. And in the piece, it really zoned in on the type of player he is. Anthony Walker is going to be a leader for the Cleveland Browns. He's going to be someone that this defense can get behind. And the Browns have other players who fit that mold as well. But when you do what Walker's done, and I brought up the number before, but it bears to note it again. Anthony Walker has tallied at least 90 tackles in each of the last 3 seasons of his career. He is someone who does not let guys get by him. Tackling was an issue for the Cleveland Browns last year, particularly when they were defending the run, when they would get back on their heels, when they were defending tight ends over the middle. You now have someone in Walker who can be in control of the situation. And I think that he is one of the better pickups across the league that's flying under the radar. The numbers match up. What we're hearing out of Berea says he's someone that the Browns are going to be able to count on. And he has established himself in this league. Anthony Walker is one quality pickup by the Cleveland Browns.
All right, Doug Poundaley's top underrated move of the offseason, drafting Richard LeCounte.
Well, here's why this is underrated. Richard LeCounte was a first or second round type of prospect before he gets in that car accident in his final year of college. Richard LeCounte is someone that leading up to that was regarded as someone who could make a very major impact for a team in their pass coverage and somebody who knew how to hit. So this is underrated because the Browns got him deep in the draft. He really fell off a lot of people's maps. And how are you going to capitalize as a draft gets deeper? Can you find a guy who could end up being a first or second round talent in the 5th, 6th round, wherever it might come? The Browns got Richard LeCounte deep in this draft because he fell off the map. He had an accident on a motorcycle. Yes, a tragic thing happened to him. We sometimes see the most motivated players come back from those types of incidents and make things happen. And for Richard LeCounte, it's been a very tough journey to this point. But I totally agree with that blog in saying that could be the most underrated move because of how much he fell off the map, because of the concerns of can he be the same football player? Can he be the same guy? This guy has gone through a lot to get to this point. The Browns are shored up in their secondary. Richard LeCounte, if he's even half of what he might be, then the Cleveland Browns got a win for where they got him in the NFL draft. He's a fascinating player who's had one heck of a journey, and he's the type of guy that will be easy to root for the types of things he's gone through. And he has to have a chip on his shoulder, Dave, because he was counted out heading into the NFL draft.
All right, one more topic before we let you go. One player that each team can't afford to lose next offseason. So we're jumping ahead. This is according to Bleacher Report. They say guard Wyatt Teller.
Yeah, so, okay, I think that's an interesting thought. Would Wyatt Teller be one of the top choices? Absolutely. I'm sure that he would be one of the top choices. I, myself, even in our era of the National Football League, would look towards the Nick Chubb angle because of what he's shown and what he's done as a Cleveland Brown and what he's been able to do in such a short period of time. But that does not make the Wyatt Teller submission a bad submission. Wyatt Teller was one of the best offensive linemen in football, and he totally changed the complexion of the Browns' offensive line last season with his production, and an all-pro player. But in this league, and I'm not trying to dismiss Mr. Teller, in this league, you got to have things shored up at quarterback and things shored up at running back. And the Cleveland Browns are in a position where, as valuable as Teller is, they still have things to figure out between making Baker Mayfield someone that's going to be here for the foreseeable future and making sure that their running back core is in the right place. So I will sit here right now and say I don't think that there's any candidate on the defensive side of the football that you would say that about, can afford to lose following this upcoming season. The Browns certainly would like to get something done with Wyatt Teller, and he's been a huge part of why they've gotten to this point. But if something does not get done, would I sit here and say, the Browns are doomed? I'm not sure if I would sit here and say that. I think the Browns have also drafted and made some acquisitions for the future of their offensive line. They have a couple of reinforcements now beyond their starting five. So I think it's an interesting submission, but I don't think it's an end-all, be-all. I still go with Nick Chubb, and I think that's something, that he is a guy that you can't let go of. I know some disagree there, but that's my vote.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think, John, I think Wyatt Teller may price himself out. I think he might be in for a huge payday if he plays the way he did a year ago, and the Browns simply won't be able to put that kind of money in. John Fanta, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. John, thanks very much.
Dave, always fun to be with you. Thanks for having me.
All right, John Fanta. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, Kevan Arnold joins us. We'll talk a little bit more Browns, what the potential of this Browns roster is from a national perspective. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
As the COVID-19 vaccines become available, you might be asking yourself, should I get it? And if I do, will I be able to go about life without putting my family at risk? You've got questions, and that's normal. The fact is, the vaccines are safe and effective. They're going to save lives. To get the latest on the COVID-19 vaccines, visit getvaccineanswers.org, because getting back to the moments we miss starts with getting informed. It's up to you.
Welcome back to Sports4CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue talking Browns football. So a lot has been made just about how good the Browns roster is. Greg Rosenthal on the Rich Eisen show had this to say about the Browns' potential.
I just worry it's the NFL. It's like, yes, everything makes sense. They have a top 5 roster, but we've seen teams like that go. Like, it wouldn't shock me if they go 10-7. A couple things go wrong for them. They should be right there with every team in the AFC. And I love the fact that they're built on an offensive line that just is back and it's loaded. They have so many different ways that they can beat you with offense. They have the best backfield in the league. They have one of the best tight end groups in the league. And now with OBJ back, like, I love the receivers too. Stefanski has to kind of prove that he's not Matt Nagy, though, that he's not like first-year coach of the year type of guy, and he keeps the magic going, because defenses will definitely adjust.
Let's bring back Kevin. Let's bring in Kevan Arnold. And Kevin, he just mentioned Matt Nagy and Kevin Stefanski in the same breath, and that made me want to go, ah.
I know, but he did go on to say that the Browns have the better quarterback option than the Bears did with Mitch Trubisky. Of course, pride of Mentor, Ohio, here in Northeast Ohio, but the better option in Baker Mayfield at the pro level than Mitchell Trubisky. So some credit given there, but you know, he brings up a lot of good points. On paper, yeah, it's a really good looking roster. We talked last time I was on about, is this a perfect roster? Is it, near perfect? And a lot of people are going to go to the card of, well, look at 2019 after the hype leading from 2018 into 2019. I just think this is a different culture and a different atmosphere that Kevin Stefanski has done and that this front office have done. And it is, the excitement is building day by day as we're only about 3 weeks away from training camp.
Yeah, and the other thing that I think is drastically different from 2019, the depth. So not the guys that you fill out as your 22 starter. When you get deeper into this roster, there's some guys that flat out can play, and there's going to be some guys that don't make this roster. They get picked up immediately once they hit the open market.
Well, and that's the advantage of having such a good roster, is those difficult cut decisions you're going to have to make at the end of camp. And yeah, there's going to be maybe some fans that are upset when they see that surprising name or few surprising names hit that waiver wire or the Browns have cut them from this roster. But Browns fans don't know what it's like to have such a deep roster and have a good team and go from one year to the next to have the same coaching staff, the same front office, the same entire offense coming back. So there are going to be a lot of competition in certain positions in training camp. It's going to be exciting to watch, and it's exciting to the point of it's not just for the excitement of football coming back and what about this year. It's the excitement of what kind of roster can this team really construct and how far can they take it this season after how they finished last year. No, last season doesn't fully impact this year, but the culture is what this team is trying to sustain year to year, and that is big to develop a successful organization.
And the other thing that you touched on, it's the first year where you've had the same structure, coaching structure. Same offensive coordinator, same defensive coordinator, same head coach, same, in most cases, same position coaches. That allows you to do, and this is a really good coaching staff, you're allowing them to coach into the next level because they can get back to that base quickly, and then they can refine some things that they think needed work that they couldn't flat out do last year.
And it opens up the playbook so much more because, every time a new coaching staff comes in, a new regime comes in, you're starting from scratch. While a lot of the concepts in the NFL are very similar, and a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of players will tell you that the language, the verbiage, and the chemistry with your teammates around you is very different. Now you don't have to worry about opening the playbook and starting and installing from scratch. Now you know what this team did well from the amount of the playbook that you opened last year, and now you can take it to that next level for this offense. Yes, the defense is new, but I think a lot of talent on that team that can pick things up quickly, and Joe Woods can have a little bit more fun opening the playbook a little bit at a faster pace than the offense may have done last year. But that offense can really dig deep into what Kevin Stefanski wants to do, the concepts he likes to run, and find other elements that teams have done film on them, and they're going to be well prepared this year for Kevin Stefanski's 2020 offense. What is this 2021 offense going to look like, and what other wrinkles can they bring? That's one of the most exciting questions that, fans can't wait till September to start finding out the answer to.
So, BrownsNation.com, 3 under-the-radar Browns who could make an impact this year. We've got Curtis Weaver, Mack Wilson, Ronnie Harrison. When you look at those, who kind of jumps out there for you?
Ronnie Harrison jumps out to me because the secondary in a passing league like the NFL, Ronnie Harrison was able to come in 11 games last year, able to amount 24 solo tackles, had that interception return for a touchdown against the Colts, which was big in that game all the way back to week 5 to kind of help the Browns continue the successful season they were building at that time. They only scored 12 points in that second half against the Colts, and 9 of those 12 points were scored by the defense. And Ronnie Harrison now kind of getting back healthy. Of course, got injured in that game against Jacksonville, his former team last year, week 12. And, the Browns were scrambling to find some guys on the back end for the playoffs. Well, now you get a guy like that behind John Johnson III and some of these other guys they brought into the secondary. It's a guy that can really come in at that strong safety position and have an impact down in the box or even out in coverage. He showed you both skills and why the Browns coveted him and brought him in for last season.
Yeah, the other guy that's kind of intriguing, Curtis Weaver, I don't think anybody really has a read because he was injured, and I think they kind of set him aside and said, we're going to keep him right here and see what we get in training camp with Curtis Weaver.
Right, but all the things that you read about him, even though fans don't know much about him, all you read is production back in college in Boise State. The Mountain West all-time leader in sacks with 34 and played in all 41 games in college, and then gets drafted in the 5th round by the Miami Dolphins and has a freak injury in camp. And they put him on waivers hoping that he was just going to clear, because most of the time that's the transaction that happens. You put a rookie like that on waivers and they most of the time clear, and they're going to put him on IR because they coveted him for their future. Well, the Browns liked him a little bit more, and they brought him in, and it's a guy that, again, can sit behind depth and you can develop. Coach Stefanski talks about all the time. They want these guys to come in and work, and the young guys, they want to help them develop and do what they do best out there on the field. And what Curtis Weaver does best is he gets after the quarterback and he produces from that defensive end position. So while you got some big names like Jadeveon Clowney on 1-year deals, now Curtis Weaver, you can have him sit behind, maybe make some impacts here and there throughout the season, but really develop those skills to then take over, and you have more control over them and a more team-friendly control. As all these question marks, I know you're talking to John about all the deals, especially with Baker Mayfield's contract extension. You're going to need talented players, but balancing the salary cap and the spending on this roster if you're going to give big money to some of your core first-round pick talent on this team.
Yeah, without question. All right, before we take a break and kind of switch our focus to baseball, CBSSports.com ranked the NFL divisions. The NFC West, number 1, AFC North 2, and the AFC West 3. Just a reaction to that.
Smart people over there at CBS. You could make a case for the AFC North because there are 4 really good quarterbacks with Joe Burrow, even down in Cincinnati, coming off that injury. Everybody expects him to come back strong, and you already saw what kind of talent he can bring there. And you have the names like Lamar Jackson and Ben Roethlisberger you've been playing against for the last couple of years. And with our own team, one of the best rosters on paper in all the NFL, it's going to be a true fight to win the AFC North. The NFC West, of course, they're kind of going with the revamped Cardinals out there in Arizona. And, of course, the Rams bringing in Matthew Stafford. Everybody thinks that they can make the big jump. Seattle's always in it. And Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco, they are expected to make a big turnaround this season as well, quarterback being the biggest question for them. There are some questions about Arizona, some questions about some of these guys in the NFC West. But, 2 juggernaut of competition that you're going to see in the NFL to try to win those divisions and get that playoff spot this upcoming season.
Kevan and Arnold and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, Kevan and I will talk Indians baseball. It is a tough conversation. Indians will also hear from Chris Antonetti, an update on Aaron Savali, as well as Shane Bieber. Sports4CLE, you'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Sports for CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. We're going to talk some Indians baseball. And Indians just 3 outs away from losing their 9th in a row. Lost 8-1 in the first game, trail 4-0, bottom of the 6th. In the second game, they are getting no hit as well. In the first game, Tribe pitching gave up 3 home runs. Franmil Reyes solo shot, the only run they scored in that 8-1 loss. Have not gotten a hit in the second game. Indians now 7.5, soon to be 8 games behind if they cannot come back. They'll come back to Progressive Field to play tomorrow night, start a series against the Royals. Some good news, Dak Prescott, the scheduled starter, rehab type of assignment is he's only going to get 60 pitches. Also, Chris Antonetti addressed the media and talked about Aaron Savali and Shane Bieber and where they stand right now as far as coming back and getting things going.
Aaron is started to play some light catch, and he'll continue to do that and see how he feels. He did get cleared by Tom Graham last homestand to initiate some throwing, so he's been doing that. Biebs will get rechecked this weekend to determine if he's ready to begin throwing activities. We'll have a better sense once they actually ramp up their intensity of their throwing, but it's safe to say we're still weeks away.
And let's bring Kevan Arnold back in. And Kevin, it is a rough time for the Indians. Eddie Rosario on the injured list. The hitting's not there. The pitching is patchwork. It's what you expect with the team that's about to lose their 9th in a row.
Yeah, unfortunately, Dave, every time we seem to talk with one another, there's another injury on the board, and this pitching staff just can't seem to get things right. I think that's the biggest issue with this team right now, and part of this possible 9-game losing skid and going all the way back to 500 record if they can't come back in the top of the 7th against the Rays in that doubleheader today. Because you got 5 guys that are averaging between 4 of the 5 giving up 7 to 9 runs a game. Well, Cal Quantrill being the best of the bunch, giving up only 4 a game. When you go from Bieber, Savali, and Plesac, only 3 to 4 runs a game in their ERA, you need somebody, and you got to hope that Plesac does come back healthy, and you see the good Plesac that we saw earlier this season to right the ship at the front of that rotation, especially here going into the All-Star break. And sounds like he'll start as long as everything comes through okay tomorrow. He'll start coming out of the All-Star break as well. You need somebody to right the ship and set the tone at the top of this rotation.
Yeah, and you know, the All-Star break can't get here, quickly enough, unfortunately, for the Indians. They need to kind of reset everything. So with Plesac, they're talking about having him 60 pitch count. He'd go out and start and get another rehab start in Columbus, then start the 3rd game back. It's something to build around because that's a guy that has given you some valuable innings at the big league level.
He has given you many valuable innings at the big league level, and like I mentioned, someone to set the tone. We've seen it with this pitching rotation, why the Indians have been so good in the past. It just seems like when one guy does well, the rest of the guys kind of fall in line. Even though you have talented pitchers in their rotation most years, it just seems like everybody kind of falls in line, and it's the culture that this Indians organization, culture being the big word today, the Indians organization has set that culture already. If one guy can set the tone, maybe that kind of gets the young talent prospects that we have up here filling the gap for these injuries, get their ball rolling a little bit as well, and they can really show you why they were highly touted prospects and why the Indians have brought them up so quickly and trusted them in this spot with so many injuries.
Kevan Arnold, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Kevin. Appreciate the time.
Always appreciate talking to you, Dave. Thank you so much for the time, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, Kevan Arnold, as always, appreciate it. If the Indians do not come back and lose that 9th straight, it will be the longest losing streak in Terry Francona's tenure as manager. And again, hard to blame him. Indians banged up all over the place, pitching staff in shambles, and a lot of the position players banged up and injured as well. That'll do it. On that happy note, that'll do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. Tomorrow, scheduled guest, Dennis Maniloff, Matt Derry. Sports for CLE will be back tomorrow at 4. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you then.